Furiosa is awesome. Congrats on the reception, and thanks for talking with me about it, guys.
Thank you.
Listen, the Wasteland, not a pleasant place. But if you had to say one thing about the Wasteland that you think might even be better than our world that we live in, what would you have to say? Like, if you had to compliment the Wasteland.
If I had to give the Wasteland a compliment, I would say you are very resourceful. I think we could all do with being more resourceful with our things and less wasteful.
Absolutely. You know, I think I was reading this book called The Comfort Crisis recently, just about how you know, we've been afforded such luxuries that we don't face adversity and challenges anymore, and therefore we become weaker and softer, and the problems that aren't really that problematic become far more dramatic, and we don't know how to handle them. So being exposed to such harshness and adversity, there's a resilience that comes with that, and we as humans, I think we're supposed to be solving problems and moving forward, and so, yeah. Not that I want to live in the wasteland.
Nice shoes. Yeah, just to clarify, don't want to go there.
No.
We're good here.
You sort of suddenly become a survivalist, it sounds like, a resourceful survivalist. Speaking of the resourcefulness, I mean, we know that Furiosa at some point gets her new hand. And I'd love to hear about learning to work as the character for the parts of the film where you had to kind of maybe not use that hand the same way you normally would, as having one, having this sort of... What was that like for you?
Honestly, my biggest concern was just gunplay with that.
Oh, right.
Because, of course, like, it actually works very, very well, but you just don't have the same nimbleness of your fingers. And so I just was like, okay, I'm going to wear this around for a bit and just keep practicing until I can do it. But yeah, it was very, very exciting to put that on for the first time. Yeah, thrilling.
That's cool. And your most recent time as Thor, I think that's the most incredible shape I've ever seen an actor get in. Maybe for any role, but definitely for a Marvel role. And Dementis is no slouch either, man. You still bring it. But so I'd love to hear about the comparison in sort of the physical prep that goes into these roles, like for Thor versus Dementis.
The last Thor movie was kind of off the back of COVID, and it was kind of like, I treated it like prison. It was just eating and training. And then I had a mate who was sort of in lockdown with us, and that's all we did. Anyway, this film, it was kind of hot off the heels of that, and so I was trying to lose a bit of the bulk, but there is a certain kind of vanity within the Wasteland that is very stylized, and especially look at Thunderdome. There's a lot of sort of, the big bodybuilder shape, kind of greased up guys and so on. Not that I wanted to be that, but it kind of went with the world, because at one point I was like, do you want me to lose a ton of weight and strip right down? And George said, no, I think he's a powerful, big, impressive figure and needs to hold a lot of space. And so I just didn't lift the same amount of weight that I was doing.
Of the people who eat in the Wasteland, Dementis does.
He's at the top of the food chain.
Blood sausage, tears.
He gets fed well.
Yeah.
And he has a membership to Gold's Gym.
He's walking in there, he's like, this guy's been, he's a sign of wealth. And then if you're packing some guns on your arms. Oh, and I wanted to ask you real quick, because I was at CinemaCon and I saw your Thor from old footage in Deadpool Wolverine footage.
Yeah,
and
really?
I was curious if you knew that was happening, what you think of that kind of stuff when they connected.
I didn't even, am I in there?
They had Dark World footage on the screen, they switched Loki with Deadpool. It's just clever mix. What are those moments for you when you kind of see that they're using stuff like that?
It's really cool. You kind of you don't forget, be like, oh cool, I'm part of the team, they're talking about me, when I'm not in it. But that whole world is really cool to be a part of, and anytime each other, I think it's what makes it all look really cool, is the interconnected nature of it.
Oh yeah, and this is a pretty cool world to be a part of too, guys. Like those the whole experience is awesome.
It's pretty special.
Thank you guys so much for talking with me about it, and congrats.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
George, it's such a privilege to talk with you. I'm a fan of so much of your work, and Furiosa is no exception. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Of course. Fury Road, I think it's just one of the best movies I've ever seen in my life. And it had so many bombastic, stylish elements, and I think a lot of that may have been influenced by the 3D thing that was kind of being pushed back in 10 years ago. And I feel like some of that, Furiosa doesn't kind of push it as far with some of those bombastic, almost cartoonish levels of the themes of Fury Road. And I'd love to hear about the choice, how you kind of approach tonally the two films, because they line up very well, and there's still sort of the guitar flying in there. There's not so much of that in Furiosa.
Well, the 3D. Just on the issue of 3D, we didn't shoot. We don't devise shots specifically for 3D.
Sure.
So we didn't on Fury Road, even though the guitar coming forward and stuff like that was part of it. 3D back when we did that, we did that post. because it's the only proper way to do 3D for a whole host of reasons. Now it's fallen out of favour. It's not a thing. Furiosa is different from Fury Road in that happened over 3 days. In fact, you can argue that most of the first act and the third act happened in real time. This happens over 18 years. Big difference in the rhythms of the storytelling and so on. It's a saga. And it's a longer film, and it covers, we watch Furiosa grow from the age of 10 to 28. And we see characters like Dementus, played by Chris Hemsworth. He ages as well. They all age in this story, and the world changes in that time. So that's a different kind of exercise in filmmaking, and that's what that's what we're doing with this one.
Absolutely, and that guitar shot is. Like, I feel like when people talk about Fury Road and some of the awesome sequences in that's one that comes to mind. It's an awesome frame.
Yeah.
And I love the camera work that you and Simon do in Furiosa, that whether it's the push-ins on the driver or kind of like a 2D kind of version of moving with the cars. Is there a shot in the film that you and Simon got to cook up that you feel like you hold it in higher regard than everything else you guys curated in Furiosa? Is there a favorite shot?
Oh, I've been asked that, and my response to that is it's not so much one shot. It's a little bit like if asking me if I was a composer or a songwriter to say what's your favourite note or favourite chord. It's in conjunction with the others around them that the experience is offered to the audience. And I think, but there are definitely shots in this I like. I mean, I'm really, in fact, as you're making the film, you sort of have a little competition, and you say to yourself, when you're cutting and you're getting it all together, oh, that's not my favourite shot. Oh no, it's been replaced by this one. But then, I have to say, I can't think of. There's shots I really like, but I can't think of one that sticks out.
That's fair.
Their favourite moment.
Hard to pick a favorite child.
Well,
yeah.
There's one that when I saw it, even when we were shooting, there's one when Dementus is on foot running away towards the end, and he's running into the mist, or the dusty mist, and then you hear a rumble, and you're not sure if it's score or what it is, and then you realise it's the vehicle in which Furiosa's in, the Cranky Black, creeping into frame, and then just as it creeps into frame, he disappears into the mist, and then he appears again. That's a shot. When I saw it being shot, I thought, that works very elegantly. It tells the story very well.
Chef's kiss moment. Yeah,
Chef's kiss,
exactly.
Okay.
I know that we talked after the screening the other day, and I heard about how you've developed this story before Fury Road, and going backwards with Furiosa was always something you kind of envisioned as a possibility. Have you thought about, after what we've seen with Tom and Mel and those versions, have you ever explored something that would be like Mel Gibson's version of the character way off in the future and those pockets of the wasteland?
I've certainly have the story of Max, just as we had the 18 years leading up to Fury Road for Furiosa, and telling us all about the Morton and his sons and everything, the wives, the dome or the vault where they're kept, everything, the way the war boys and everybody works. All of that was dealt with in that world in the story of Furiosa, just not Furiosa's story. We also wrote what happened to Max in the year before we meet him in Fury Road, and that's a story we have. But again, it's pre-Fury Road.
Sure.
I haven't thought too much, even though I've let my mind go there, of what happens after Fury Road. What happens at the Citadel? What does Furiosa do with the Citadel? What happens to Max in that time? Yeah. But these are all things that, I've spent some time thinking about, but my head's in what happens before Fury Road.
Absolutely, man. And Chris has been really open about how much he loved working with you and how he hopes to work with you again. He also has been open about wanting to do another Thor. So as a big fan of superheroes, you almost did a superhero movie once upon a time. Did you guys ever talk about that? Would you ever go work with him on his next Thor iteration?
I would work with Chris on anything. Yeah. I really would. He's a wonderful actor. He's got the full he's got the full range of all the skills. I mean, you've got to be athletic physically, but you also got to be athletic emotionally and intellectually to take on these very, ultimately fairly complex any role really. So I was very lucky with all my cast, and particularly in the way that Anya and Chris matched each other, particularly towards the end of the movie.
So my last thing for you, because we talked a little bit about the technology evolution and how it's opened doors for things you can shoot here that you might not have been able to do 10 or longer before that with some of these Mad Max movies. If you could go back to one of your original Max movies with today's technology and do one scene over again, do you have one that you think would be fun to try to take a crack at with today's filmmaking capabilities?
Look, I hadn't thought about it, but the one thing I can say, they would have been safer.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's definitely. And the other thing I can say is that the cameras are way more agile. You can do things with the cameras now and put them in places that you couldn't before. I mean, if you're doing like a big shot, let's say with an explosion, and you want to shoot in celluloid, you've got a basically you've got I can't remember what the biggest spools were, but let's say it's 1,000 feet, and you're doing that at high speed, like slow motion. So basically you're shooting, let's just say 2 or 4 times as fast as normal. Doesn't take long before you've used up all your film. Now it's really interesting. If you have a big explosion and you've not only got to set your cameras, but you've got to start your cameras, but then you've got to get everybody out, your crew out. Now, you can use probably whatever it is, let's say it's 2 minutes maximum that you've got before you run out of film. It's almost impossible to do big shots like that. Now, working digitally with just a chip, you can shoot for 45 minutes before you say action. And it doesn't cost you anything. Sure. You can just erase over what you've got, that stuff. So that's simple things like that are a big difference. But I haven't really gone through that exercise of figuring out what we could have shot. There probably is.
Sure.
I can think about it.
Well, another hit here, man. Furiosa is awesome. Thank you so much for talking with me about it, and congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a pleasure to meet you.
It's good, yeah.